Hey, so a little backstory on me. My name is John. I'm 36 years old. I'm a military member, fitness advocate. Love being in the gym. Love working out. Love lifting weights. Kind of a hectic lifestyle with the military, traveling a lot, deploying, training. Long days, long nights. Trying to balance that with a family and friends, and still maintaining some kind of a social life gets pretty challenging at times. I always try to make the time to stay fit. Fitness is a pretty important part of my job. So I kind of pride myself on being the guy that's always in the gym and always working out and kind of, trying to steer people towards that themselves. I think, for me, I realized like I wasn't out of shape. I was a big guy. I was muscly. I always like consider myself a pretty big dude. I think the hardest part for me was like I never could get toned. I could never get, cut or ripped, for lack of a better term. I guess I always just thought of myself as a fat muscle guy. I'd throw a shirt on and I would hide my gut. I looked big. I looked, muscly. Everyone was like, "Oh wow, you're in such great shape." But like I said, it was just a muscle fat. I'd go to the gym and I would work out, and I just kind of convinced myself that it was genetics. I couldn't be that ripped guy. I couldn't have abs. I couldn't be lean and toned. It just wasn't in my genetics. I guess that's kind of what I told myself, and makes you feel better. You go to the gym, you go to the beach, and everybody's taking their shirts off and they're ripped and they're lean, and I'm kind of like, I just don't want to get sunburned. You make those excuses over and over again, and I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. I just, I thought I knew what I was doing. I was in the gym. I would, I'd research different workout programs, different routines I could do, switch it up. How often should I change my workout program? And it just, I got to the point where I believed that that was who I was. I was just not a lean guy. It wasn't who I was supposed to be. And I think that's kind of what I told myself. I think I got to the point where I was just, I was tired. I was watching all my peers and all my friends. Someone would come and they'd start ripping up and leaning up, and I thought, okay, you know what? I need to make a change. Something has to change here, and maybe it's time I get a coach or someone just to kind of help me and guide me. So it's kind of what brought me to Legion Athletics, was that need to bring it to the next level, tear it up, and start trying to get rid of this fat just to see what I could do. When I started with Legion, I was 196.4 pounds. I was 37-inch waist. I was well over 20% body fat. I was just frustrated. I was tired of putting in hours and hours at the gym and just never seeing any results. I got linked up with Harry, who, right off the get-go was just super understanding, super easy to talk to, was very honest, was very forthright with everything. We had great communication. We just hit it off. He was able to kind of guide me into stuff that I didn't think I would have any interest in. But he was just such an expert on it, and he just seems so knowledgeable that I couldn't help but buy into the program, and just try. I always, I felt like I was asking him a million questions all the time, and he's always so patient and so guiding, and it was just a great experience. So I did the 3-month transformation program. It was hard. It was demanding, but I always felt that the support was there. I didn't do it alone. Harry was there every step of the way. So I finished the program at 170.2 pounds. So I was down, almost, over 25 pounds. My waist was down to a 31-inch waist. I could see my abs. I could see veins that I didn't think, I could have that. I just muscle in places I didn't think I could have muscle because I'd never seen it before. My body fat was reading it at under 10%. And it was just, it felt amazing. It was a huge accomplishment, and you do these things that you don't think you can do. You spend so much time convincing yourself that you can't do it, or it's just not you, or genetically you weren't meant to be this way. And then when you see those results, and the summer comes, you take your shirt off and you're the ripped guy at the beach and you're toned, and you just feel so great about yourself. It's hard to put into words what that does for your confidence and your drive to just continue. I think, the biggest fear for me was like, well, what about when this is 3-month program's over? How am I going to do it? But the change in just your mentality is, it's like I said, it's just hard to put into words. You'd be so glad you did it. I think like for me, like recommending a program, a coaching program to people, I just can't stress enough that it's not just for the beginners. It's not just for the people who it's their first, their first time working out, their first time going to a gym. Like I said, I've been training weightlifting for over 20 years. I honestly thought I knew everything there was. So I would highly recommend this to anyone who's struggling to get the results they want, or anyone who feels like they're just at the point where they can't do anymore or they can't get any better. That's the people that I really recommend this to. Just get in, try it, and you'll be amazed at what you actually can do with the proper guidance and the proper coaching. If you're on the fence about it because you're worried that you're going to be pressured into it, or I can't stress enough. Like, I signed up for the free call. You should too. Just do it. Just get on there, get the call back, have the discussion, have the talk. There was no pressure ever. I was kind of worried about that when I first signed up for the call. I was thinking, I don't know, like, what if I get put on the spot, or if I get pressured into it, or what if I make the decision based just because I just have to do it. It was kind of none of that. I got the call, we chatted, I laid out my situation, what I was feeling, what I was struggling with, what I needed help with, and they were just so understanding. They talked me through everything and explained what they do, what they could offer me, and the conversation kind of ended with, take some time, think about it. If it's something that you want to do, where we're at, reach out and we'll get it started. And I'm glad I did. So if I can give you any advice, it's book that call, make that call. It could change your life.